speaking of the gender wars, they continue to rage and are being fought not just on a cultural front, but on a governmental front too. Now, Australia is the worst kind of nanny state. I mean, not only do we get taxed every time we move sideways, we also have federal and state governments who think it's their job to tell us how we should think and how we should socialise. The latest offering on this front relates to gender ideology and comes, of course, from the radically left-wing, woke as they come, government of the state of Victoria. Now, I'm going to play this new state government ad all the way through so you get the full gist of this campaign. Unless there is a spate of males wearing makeup not being given seats on public transport, I'm not sure why the Victorian Government has chosen to make this ad. I'm even less impressed by the encouragement for males to intimidate women into competing in women's sports. So, is this just another lame attempt by an Australian state government to enforce woke behavioural standards, or is there a more sinister agenda behind it? Joining me to help me find the answer, as well as talk about her latest adventures in fighting arguably the most consequential court case for women's rights in decades, is the founder of women's social app Giggle and women's rights activist. We love having her on the show, and we're very lucky to get her as she is in high demand. It is the phenomenal Sall Grover. Sall, so great to have you here. How are you?
I'm so well. Thank you so much for having me.
Always a pleasure. Very keen to get stuck into this. So, Sall, pardon me, coughed. Sall, tell us about this campaign. I mean, is it just the latest attempt by the extremely woke Victorian Labor government to tell people how they should live their lives, or is there something more sinister behind it?
Well, I think the first thing you actually have to say about it is it's the stupidest ad campaign most of us have ever seen.
Yes.
I actually wonder if the visuals of the ad were created by a woman like myself who is fighting against this nonsense, but then the actual ad copy was written by someone who is sort of trapped inside the bubble, because what they're trying to say and what they're showing are two completely different things. Like, if you start with the woman in the elevator who leaves because the man wearing a dress, it might not even be that he's wearing the dress. It could just actually be the maleness of him. Like, it's never addressed, because it's actually an incredibly normal thing for women to remove themselves from situations where they are anxious or feel like they could potentially be in danger with a male, and then they've got no other recourse but to leave. Like, this is what's so crazy. Like, this woman actually in that ad does what we've told women and girls to do forever, which is remove yourself from a situation that makes you uncomfortable. Like, she didn't hurt this person. She wasn't rude to them. She just left. Maybe she forgot her handbag. Like, we literally don't know anything, but they package it as this, this unspoken, this unsaid prejudice or meanness and nastiness towards a man, and never once go into the fact that it's absolutely okay for women to have boundaries. And furthermore, the first thing I thought of when I saw it was, how is a man unsafe when a woman leaves an elevator? Like, it's just madness. And then if you go into the other one where it's like the guy in the ugly shirt on the train or bus, whatever it is, and if you notice, this guy moves his bag so we can sit down. But there are women standing up in the background. Like, it's just like every possible choice that they have made in these ads are so ridiculous. And they've positioned it that, so you've got, like, they sort of start it and end it with, like, the start is the woman, the first ad is the woman who removes herself from the elevator and she's the bad guy there. And it ends with the woman allowing the man to come and play sport with them. And in between, it's these, apparently showing us these two men who are totally fine with men who wear, I don't know, like ugly outfits. That's pretty much the extent of it. And so I just watched the ads and I was like, well, all you're saying to me is that, which is what we've always said, which is men don't actually have a problem with sex stereotype non-conforming men. So stop telling us that they're in danger of them and let them go into male spaces. They don't need to come into female spaces. We're apparently the bad guys.
Yeah, it is so odd, and the thing of the big burly guy giving up the seat on the tram for the sort of more effeminate, effete gentleman in the interesting shirt. I mean, I would have thought that's perpetuating a really negative stereotype about burly, like sort of working class looking men, that they're all sort of homophobic, and that, which just isn't the case. I mean, like all the sort of burly working class men I've ever come across, they really do not care what you do in your bedroom or how you do. They're more concerned with their own thing. It's like, oh, what do you, mate? They literally don't care. So it's so insulting to other parts of the population. And look, you mention the visuals of this ad. You have very stand-out-ish gender non-conforming people, like very, very obviously so. A person who is very obviously a male wearing that dress at the start. I mean, I just thought that person gave the woman in the lift a filthy look, and that's why she got out. He looked sort of angry.
He was
sort of
very,
angry. Yeah,
he was intimidating.
Yeah, and then looked down at her like that. But I thought, Sal, we weren't supposed to notice if people were trans. Like, we weren't supposed to sort of see them. So what's the deal there?
Completely. We're constantly told you can't tell if somebody's trans. So then if that's the case, then that ad is saying that all of these people are just recognizing and making decisions on these people based on their sex.
Yeah, like it is.
Which is essentially...
No, go ahead.
This is where, like, this is the... how like they obfuscate all of these issues and make it so confusing, because you're like, what are you all actually, what is your side trying to say? And what is it that you think that our side is trying to say? Because what I got from this ad is that they actually have no idea what it is that we're saying. So if you take like the seat on the bus and then the old man who is moving in and drops the box, both of those issues aren't about rights. You're not ending up in federal court because you didn't help a neighbor pick up a box or you didn't give a man in an ugly shirt a seat on the bus. However, with the first one of a woman being able to remove herself from a situation she's uncomfortable, everyone should have that right, man, woman, and child. And on the final one, it's actually just these women allowing this man into their sports. Now, that's a rights issue. That's actually a legal issue. And they're portraying it as these just women who are just like, oh, they're the kind ones, they're the nice ones. They'll see this giant man who could injure them as a woman, and therefore basically consenting for every other woman, any other woman on that team, and then also the women in the teams they have to play. You have one man in a women's sports competition, and you have actually destroyed it for hundreds of women, because it's not just that team, it's the other teams they have to play. And this is actually playing out in reality in Australia, because women's football is being sort of overrun with men who are claiming to be women, and women are being intimidated to play with them. They are forfeiting matches, they're getting injured, and no one's listening to them. And then you've got like governments that are putting out ads basically saying, if you don't go along with this, you're the bad one.
Yeah,
it's just mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. And look, let's play, there were those two bits of the ad that really irritated me, and I'm sure you as well. We'll play the first one. Let's remind everyone of the situation where the male person walks into the lift, and just look at the look that the male person gives the woman. Let's play the clip. Like, if someone gave me a look like that, male or female, when I got into a lift, I too would get out of the lift. Not because they're gender non-conforming. That I don't care about. And you got to remember, Sal, this is the Victorian state government that tells all little boys in school, thanks to their Respectful Relationships program, that they are all potential misogynistic predators and they need to constantly fight against their inner beast. How are they seriously telling women that if they feel uncomfortable in a situation with a male that they shouldn't remove themselves?
I mean, if you actually see, he's making a fist with his hand. Like, these are some really questionable choices that they just made artistically in putting this ad together. And you are right that there is really complicated conversations to be had about just sort of the relations between the sexes in society and how sort of that plays out in both childhood and adulthood. And you do have little boys who are being told that everything about masculinity is bad, and that is incorrect. Not everything about masculinity is bad, just like not everything about femininity is bad. There's a lot of nuance here. And you don't want to tell little boys all the time that just they're bad, they're wrong, because that is also contributing to why a lot of boys want to leave, say, pretend they're not men anymore. And it's also why a lot of girls want to avoid becoming women, because of just these sort of images that are marketed to them. And it's, sort of the internet and television and just digital media everywhere is saturated with it. And so if we really wanted to have progress and move forward, we could actually sort of talk about this nuance and have these difficult conversations in a really honest way. But this isn't that, because this is just, once again, just completely centering this trans narrative in everything and creating, it's just propaganda. It's just creating propaganda. And Victoria is definitely, it was one of the worst of it, although I would say that all of Australia is questionable. I think that Australia is the most captured country in the world with this nonsense. I really do.
Yeah.
We don't have a pushback from any political parties with it. We don't have enough media speaking out about it. I mean, there's just no legacy media who is speaking out about this in any meaningful way. And then politicians are just being so cowardly. And I just, none of this is healthy for society. It's also regressive. It's not pushing us in any direction that is healthy, I don't think.
No, I think it is absolute propaganda, and I hate to sound sort of a bit contrite, but it is Marxist propaganda. It's that whole sort of come between the sexes, get in the middle of people's personal relationships, and push men and women apart so their one allegiance becomes to the state. It's right out from that playbook, and it's appalling. And look, but the Victorian, before we go to a break, I'd love your take on this. The Victorian Government campaign isn't the only government social issues campaign out there. The New South Wales state government has a similar offering, but about coercive control. Let's have a look at that one.
When they make all the decisions and they do anything to keep you, even hurt the ones you love, it's not love, it's coercive control.
So, Sal, in a nutshell, what's your take on that?
Literally, that voiceover could be put on an ad criticizing the New South Wales government. Specifically what they're saying. I mean, the coercive control monster is in the house. The moment that you are forcing women to see men as women, that is actual coercive control. It's definitely not love. We're sort of, as a society, losing our rights more and more every day at the hands of the government. So I just think that if they're going to have any sort of conversations about coercive control, I'd look within first. And again, this is propaganda. Again, we could have conversations about men in bad relationships and where they are the victim in a bad relationships. I mean, the statistics don't lie. It's overwhelmingly women who experience, domestic violence, and children who are the victims of domestic violence as well. But it does happen to men, and we can have conversations about that. But this isn't that. This is, again, putting this sort of transgender narrative at the center of something and putting propaganda out there for just trying to manipulate people's empathy for this group of people who are not marginalized, who are actually doing the coercive control back to us. These are the most powerful people in society at the moment. Try misgendering one. See what happens. See who has the power, because it certainly isn't you.
Well, look, as the saying goes, if you want to know who has the power in society, look at who you're not allowed to criticise. I mean, I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. And the thing about the gender ambiguity in that ad is that it actually sort of obfuscates the point, because I had a different reaction to that. I thought the person in the wheelchair was female, and to me it was like the New South Wales government was trying to be woke by being inclusive, but being accidentally very unwoke by pointing out the fact that if that was a same-sex relationship, there is just as much, if not more, abuse that goes on in same-sex relationships than as in heterosexual relationships. So it's all like very, very, very strange and propaganda. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is the thing. If you're going, like, these are all really important conversations to have, and you actually have to have them really clearly. And so if you're making these ads that are just so vague, where you're just leaving people going, I don't even know what they're trying to say, well, what's the point of it then? Because literally all I take from that ad is, yeah, that's what they are saying is bad is exactly what they're all doing to us. So, and I can't get past that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Once you realize what's going on, like, you can't sort of unsee it everywhere. And it is just, I wish that we were having more nuanced, interesting conversations about, like, sort of different social problems in society, but we're just not. It's all tokenism.
It just dissolves into propaganda, and as we've both said, it obfuscates the message. So therefore, nobody's lives actually improve for the sake of the narrative and the messaging. Gosh.